Hey guys, I'm John. It is April 24th, 2024, and I'm doing a very off-the-cuff video about VRAM in 2024. So, right now, I don't get to game as much as I would prefer to game, because I have a business, I'm building my business. Go check out johnmalicki.com, jabcreations.com. Ping me in the comments, and also, so I'm just talking about VRAM in general. Again, I apologize, my middling camera with decent video and okay-ish audio died, so I'm stuck on the Roswell, and my 4K camera I don't have 20 feet of active USB power delivery for a 4K camera, so it doesn't turn on low power USB ports, and I don't know what the power rating is for each of the ports, whatever. So, VRAM. There's the 8 GB video card market is completely oversaturated. We don't need any more 8 gig cards. 8 gig cards are dead in the market. I would even surmise that if 8 gigs of VRAM is enough for you, even the used market, and there is a lot of consumer protection. eBay, apparently, I don't trust the sellers on eBay when it comes to graphics cards because of the crypto boom, but I do trust eBay themselves to handle, I think it's maybe even consumer biased instead of seller biased, but I'm not sure. That's not really the topic here. We don't need more 8 gig cards. 8 gig cards, and I will talk about video games and VRAM capacity and usage and all that other stuff. 12 gigs is entry level. So, NVIDIA released an $800 12 gig entry level card called the 4070. It's entry level, alright. That's like if you go to NASCAR. I don't watch NASCAR, but I'm going to take a wild guess that you need more than 1 gallon of gas if you're going to go onto the race car track. And it's like, why would you artificially limit? Now that's Intel, not Intel. Intel actually has a 16 gig card for like $300-ish, that area. So they're not actually a culprit on that one. NVIDIA knows that what they do is they release just enough VRAM to get by, because NVIDIA's not a corporation, they're a criminal organization. They're anti-consumer, they're anti-competitive. And so, there are plenty of games that are exceeding 12 gigs of VRAM, okay? And I can't actually say with certainty that 1080p, 1440p, and 4K actually makes much of a difference on the VRAM capacity itself. I think it's simple. I could be wrong, but I think it's more of what options do you enable and the textures that are loaded, especially if you do modding and you download custom textures. Like I've been playing Cyberpunk 2077 and finally bought a copy. Full $70 price, but I'm like, whatever, I want a legit copy from Good Old Games. I do want to see Good Old Games, or GOG, whatever we want to call it, succeed. I don't want to deal with DRM, but we're not talking about DRM, we're talking about VRAM. Cyberpunk 2077 uses between 8 and 12 gigs of VRAM. It's poorly optimized. It looks fantastic, but they didn't optimize the game. Really, it's poor programming underneath. And I'll give you guys a relative comprehension of how well and badly software optimization has on hardware. Give you guys kind of a parallel. My web platform, as far as I could tell, is the fastest platform for serving a web page from the platform. It's based on the software. Same hardware, different software platform. My closest competition is 2.5 times slower. 2.5 times slower. What's 2.5 times slower? That's like if you drive one way to work for half an hour, driving 2.5 hours one way to work every day. Another 2.5 hours back. That's 20 hours a week more time that you could be sleeping, eating, hanging out with friends, skating late, whatever. Okay, 2.5 times slower. That's bad, okay? That's my closest competition. Then there's WordPress, that's 8.5 to 10 times slower. 10 times slower. Alright, that's a whole is, and I'm literally doing these videos off the cuff here to just get them out. And Wix, which I can't download Wix, but so it's not a apples to apples comparison with the server hardware. But in general, Wix is 24 times slower. I'm based in Sarasota, so that's like if instead of driving to Tampa, I walked. Okay, that's a 45-minute one-way drive, doing about 75 miles an hour. Okay. Yeah. So, video game optimization is a big part of it, and I think we need to support developers, legitimate developers, and legitimate publishers. And that's a whole other topic about reusability, about refining and using an engine and particular game engines over years, and building the baseline correctly. And of course, business ownership of these businesses, which is very important, which is not the topic. So 12 gigs of VRAM is entry level, period, in 2024. That is entry level, okay? If there are games that you're playing at 1080p, 1440p that use more than 12 gigs, well, I keep hearing this, oh, it's allocated. It's not using it, it's allocating it. Now, yes, I'm sure there is, to an extent, some validity of that issue, but generally speaking, if the game needs it, the game is not optimized, so if it adds an asset to your GPU's VRAM that's not using, and that's wasting the space, okay, then it has to remove it. If it removes it, and I'm going to get into that to a moment, and then replace it with what it needs to, so that's going to pause. So now the frame rate's going to go down because it doesn't have the assets. Or if the frame rate doesn't go down, the quality of the game, so if you've watched enough technology enthusiast gaming videos, not just for the gaming, but I love technology in general, that you're going to see like the trees suddenly become giant blocks, almost monolithic looking blocks. There's a fantastic video by Steve and what's his name, and they work in conjunction with TechSpot, I think. I'm sorry guys, I forget the name of the channel. Ping me below in the comments and I'll link to them. Look at the 3070 NVIDIA GeForce 3070 with 8 gigs that was selling for like $500–600 or more. And this was during crypto boom, so probably more. I don't know what the MSRP was. Versus the RX 6800. You know, I actually have an RX 6800 with 16 gigs of VRAM, and it's not enough. And it's like I was stuck on a 290X of 4 gigs of VRAM that I got in like 2015, and then all the 8 gig cards started coming out after, and just I got really screwed on that. And it's not just the game optimization that's an issue. Browsers are using VRAM. Browsers are using a lot of VRAM. Now, I don't have much, I'm not in the middle of working right now on my stuff, but right now, my VRAM usage is 2.1 gigs. No video games open, I'm just using 2 gigs of VRAM. Just casually with, I've got WaterFox current for my primary browser with maybe 2, 3, or 4 tabs open. And I've got maybe 2 or 3 tabs open for Firefox, 115. That's like my dedicated YouTube that I sign in because I don't want Google tracking everything on my primary browser. So, 2 gigs of VRAM. If we go into here and show what's using it, apparently there's 5 gigs of VRAM being used by, apparently, I'm not quite sure, but that's what's being reported by the AMD Radeon service. I don't know. The Firefox process is using 1.2 gigs. The desktop window manager, DWM, which is a Microsoft service for Windows, is using 860 megabytes of VRAM. WaterFox 284 megabytes. The Corsair iQ, because I have a Corsair mouse here with the trigger button. The trigger button's really cool. That's using It's mouse management software. Right? Why is mouse management software using almost 200 megabytes of VRAM? I don't even open the damn thing. I'm not even looking at it visually. And the only reason I have that open is because for the trigger button, because I can use other software for the other two buttons. So, but I got to use it because, again, once I get my web business, robust and working, I'm going to come into the hardware industry and fix a lot of things. Like, mouse software should be using like maybe 10 megabytes of memory. All it is click a button, detects a button, say I want this to be mouse button 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 22, whatever, and assign a macro, done. That's all that the software should do. Anyway, OBS is using 158 megs of RAM, VRAM. That's fine because I don't have OBS open 24/7. Radeon software, so I don't know why I don't know why they have two things. That's using 155 megs. So the point here is that VRAM isn't just about video games and what the video games are going to be loading. I'm going to make an even better point. When I was redesigning JohnBelly.com, because I don't have any really super high-end luxury clients or anything like that, and I get kind of tired of the ragtag, can't pay their bills, solo contractors thing. That's not the direction for my business. And so about a couple years ago, I'm like, okay, I'm going to work on. I want something that just pops and grabs your attention and screams high value, maximum value. Again, ping me down in the comments. I'll share links down there. JohnBelly.com. When I was working on that, I had 3 browsers open, a lot of tabs open, and I was using over 10 gigabytes of VRAM just from the browsers. No video games. Now, I want to make some clarifications because at the same time, like, I'll give you an example. On occasion, I play, and yes, when I'm turning my head, I'm looking at a 32-inch screen. I'm not like on like a 4-inch dinky phone, okay? Which is annoying when I have people send me text messages. It's like, dude, I want a 4-inch phone. You could have emailed this to me, and I could have looked at it on my 32-inch screen. Whatever. I've played on and off Path of Exile. And I think that uses 1 gig of VRAM. And I know they're going to have Path of Exile 2 coming out. They've been talking like a beta. If all you play are old games, you don't need 16 gigs, 24 gigs of VRAM. But the thing is that right now, 16 gigs is, if I'm maxing out VRAM, okay, I was like, well, what are you maxing out the VRAM for? So besides the fact that a lot of games are already using 12 gigs of VRAM outright themselves, and there's a software that's using it, I'm going to bring up 2 games. Now remember, I don't get the game as much as I used to. I'm building business. Quite often, if I get the game, I game for like an hour or maybe 2. If I'm just kind of getting a little burned out and I know I got to take it easy. Sniper Elite 5 came for free with my RX 6800. It's not the XT, it's the baseline one. And I'm still have 60 hertz limitation on this 32-inch screen I got back in 2015. And there's a gigabyte 43-inch. I don't want OLED because I do a lot of production, and I know I'm going to get burn in on that, and I'm not going to babysit a monitor. Alright, I'm supposed to be looking at it and using it and being productive. So, QLED, I think it is, and it's like only like $700 or $800 or whatever on Newegg. Some production issues, and I think someone's, one of the workers in China or Taiwan are been damaging some of the packaging or whatever. But the specs for the monitor are very nice, and I don't want to use 4K unless I'm on a larger screen. 4K doesn't work for production, at least for me, and I don't do desktop scaling. So Sniper Elite 5 is an example of a game that maxed out 16 gigs and didn't crash. Okay, now I'm making that distinction. Mid-2023, my friend Andrew, I've known since high school, I want to give him a shout out, and I really want to pick up the weight here because he's been helping me out over the past few years, and I want to contribute back. But he, I just couldn't get a copy of Diablo 4, and hey, I'm a huge fan of the Diablo series. Have been a huge fan of the Diablo series. Maybe I'll shoot a fourth video this morning. There's a difference between when I actually tested this out, but I got to play. I played for maybe a couple weeks, and then I didn't even finish the game as was middle of 2023. Okay, just literally after all the cinematics and getting out there, suddenly I get out of VRAM error messages. Now it's different, and I'm going to clarify that here. That was like you spend 30 seconds once you're into the game to maybe 5 minutes back then, okay, and it's not a single player game, so they're not going to let you on to single player, and I can make a whole very long video about Diablo 4, and you get the out of VRAM issue error. Okay, now if you don't click OK, the game wouldn't crash and it would still keep running. Okay, but it's Diablo 4. How's it out of VRAM? I'm not getting into the technicalities of it. I'm a programmer, but I'm a interpreted web programmer. I am not a compiled software / gaming software programmer. Different types of programming. But I can tell you that there are people who do not know how to organize information, and they take this when they just need, they take a bucket when they only need a teaspoon, because most developers are not working on dedicated lifelong projects that they can hone in and refine and refine, and they're usually stuck in part of teams. And so when you don't have like a software project like me, where I own 100% of the company, I'm not working with other developers, it's very clean and honed and fine-tuned over time especially, and I'm only doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not doing something because someone said do this thing when the programming. So that is an issue of optimization. That's also kind of an issue with like how businesses and kind of like the mindset and the mentality. So optimization is a huge thing. Fast forward to about, I'm going to say probably the start of April 2024. I went on the game. I don't care about Diablo 4. Like, they completely destroyed the game. And I'm very tempted to make a fourth video this morning and upload that. And you guys are like, oh, John's posting videos again. I'm just taking a moment when kind of in between two crazy points in my life. I basically did this huge arch, which is probably you guys is like that. Okay, so I was basically around like 1 or 2 o'clock on a clock, and I went counterclockwise around, and it didn't crash like it did early into just starting the game and playing 20-30 seconds. And so I watched the VRAM usage, and slowly went up, and it eventually crashed when I was about 7 o'clock on the clock, if you superimpose the clock on the actual map of the game. And so the game is they have made some optimizations to the game engine. I'm not talking about the game, the content, and yada yada. I'm talking about the game engine and VRAM allocation. So removing assets from the VRAM is considered an optimization apparently, because people don't really focus on resource management, that's not really an optimization. That's kind of a must. I would, when I was first playing back in the mid 2023, I was zooming in and looking at the different 3D assets in the game, and I didn't like having to turn down the textures. It just looked terrible. The high textures look terrible. Not all of them, but when you zoomed in. So, again, I'm not that's not my specialty. Yes, I'm a programmer. I'm not that kind of programmer. And so there are some games that don't use a lot of VRAM. There's that look fantastic, and vice versa. It's very subjective, and we get into the purely subjective part of what looks good to who and what not. But sticking to VRAM. So moving forward, where are we? Where's the light at the end of the tunnel? Are we still stuck in the middle of the tunnel? Are we near the end of the tunnel? So, the GeForce, was it? I don't really follow NVIDIA. They 3, 4. So the GeForce 5000 RTX series and the AMD 8000 series. So if you guys follow the Moore's Law is Dead channel even half as much as I do, and I focus on AMD because they're the only ones, Intel, NVIDIA, and AMD. AMD is the only one that isn't doing anything explicitly anti-consumer or anti-competitive. Alright, doesn't mean that they don't drop the ball. They drop the ball here and there quite a lot, and their marketing team blows. I could do better marketing for them, for crying out loud, with zero budget. So apparently, high-end Navi 41 had too many complications, and Navi 51, which would be the Radeon RT9000 series, which will come out supposedly maybe end 2025 to mid 2026, probably into 2026, probably, is doing very well and on track in development. And so I think that's where we're going to finally see 3 gigabyte, not bit. I hate the whole, let's use bit so we have bigger numbers. I hate that. 3 gigabyte chips. And so, with the next series, the upcoming late 2024 AMD and the early 2025 low to mid-range 8000 series, is it 8000? No. Yeah, AMD 8000 series and the NVIDIA 5000 series cards. We're still going to be probably stuck with 8 gig entry-level cards. I would just say at that point, clamshell, everything by default. By default. There's just no way around it. We need more VRAM. Now, I think NVIDIA's not going to do that. I think NVIDIA is going to continue playing their stunts. NVIDIA does not give a damn about gamers at all, even though that's how they got to where they are, is from gamers. My last NVIDIA graphics cards, I had 2 8000 GTs. I did really like them, but not as much as a 7900 GT card, because it wasn't so hot, and it was a single slot, and at the time 256 megabytes of VRAM was good enough. And that was probably my favorite NVIDIA graphics card. But I did like my 2 8000 GTs, and I really didn't want to get dual slot cards, because that's when dual slot cards were becoming a thing. We're talking like, what, mid-2000s? Mid to late 2000s, not even the 2010s here, and now we're like basically halfway into the 2020s. Damn it, Billy! Anyway, so Diablo 4 will destroy a 16 gig VRAM video card if you play it long enough. They have made some optimizations to it. So my goal here for 2024 is to get a 7900 XTX with 24 gigs of VRAM. I am concerned that AMD won't have a 24 gig VRAM card once they launch the 8000 series, because apparently they're going to do what they did with the RX 5000 series, and like the 5700 was their highest end card. There was no big Navi, whatever the Navi number was back then, and so when we were stuck on the without a 16 gig card from AMD, the big topic was, hey, we can't wait for big Navi. Where's big Navi? And then eventually the RX 6000 series came out, and it's a pretty solid, respectable line of graphics cards, very competitive with NVIDIA. And when you buy a graphics card from AMD, you're not giving money to criminals. As a businessman, that's fantastic. So, right now, 16 gigs of RAM really is lower mid-range. It's not low-end, but it's not true mid-range. I'm talking about, in the context I'm talking about is modern games that are going to use the VRAM, and you have at least one browser and let's say 10 tabs open on average. That's like, I mean, how many tabs do you guys have open? All right. When I open up my dedicated browser for YouTube, it's just nothing but YouTube tabs on there because, again, I don't want YouTube's owned by Google, and I want Google stalking me in my primary browser. So I'm signed into YouTube because, one, I'm technically a YouTube creator, technically, um, and two, I can't find enough media to download and watch offline on the side to fill in the void. So I'm still on here. So basically, how many tabs do you guys have open? How much VRAM are you using without a video game open? And then you throw on top of how much VRAM the game's going to allocate. Ignore we don't care about the allocation bit because it's even well-meaning software developers, how many development studios, especially the low-end studios, that are trying to put out like mid-range games, like I think Helldivers is like very popular. I don't really know much about the game. I don't know how much VRAM it's using, but they're selling the game for like $40, whereas like most games are being sold for $70, and people are saying, hey, it's great value for $40 because the content is fantastic, and apparently it is one of the very rare games as a service that people actually like. Okay, screw Ubisoft and their filthy Marxist slaver parasite policies. Don't buy Ubisoft. Ubisoft is they got blacklisted by me. So I don't know what games use the most VRAM, and the problem is that you have to have enough VRAM for a game to actually be able to dump everything into there. And not all games will crash when there's not enough VRAM. Some games will crash like Diablo 4, some games won't. I don't know. I did literally go into Task Manager and kill off everything I could without crashing my system to see how much VRAM Sniper Elite 5 would use. And I've never heard anyone mention Sniper Elite 5 when I watch the gaming videos and whatnot. So there's a ton of videos up there. I probably played the first 4 or 5 levels. There's a level where there's an isthmus, I think it is, like you have a very tiny sliver of land and then another body of land. So it's not technically a peninsula where it's like Florida's a peninsula, but there's a whole bunch of land out there beyond that that's connected by a tiny little sliver of land. So there's that map, and it's a very popular map apparently, and it's actually quite a fun map, and you can never take down enough filthy Marxist slaver parasites. So I'm always all for that, regardless of what they call themselves. Anyway, communist, socialist, all that other nonsense. Freedom, real freedom. Marxism is the tyrannical thing. I'm walking past a point in the slums of part of Cyberpunk 2077, and there's Marxist propaganda about the tyranny of capitalism. Yes, the tyranny of having a job versus living in a mud hut that you personally built. You don't have to own a home. You could be out on the streets, homeless if you wanted. So, that, yeah. But we're not going to get into the political stuff here. And I'm anti-political, I might add, because politics is the art of fraud. So, yeah, I think we might, and unless AMD gets really smart, I would love to see them do clamshell everything. I would love to see them, and I would like to see higher memory interfaces for lower-end cards. I know that memory interfaces for the bus from the GPU to the VRAM is a large part of the segmentation, and there's a lot of things I actually want to get in direct touch over the phone with an AMD executive, because there's some super insanely juicy things that AMD they have their head in the clouds, and if I could talk with an executive, I think we could do some amazing things with the 9000 series that people just aren't even considering. It was totally off the radar and would be like out of nowhere. And I've actually tried and add a couple executives on there, and one accepted the invitation on LinkedIn, but didn't reply even when I followed up. Because you can add add a note to an invitation. I've never had people reply to that, and it's like poorly implemented. LinkedIn, which is bought up by Microsoft, and it hasn't really improved, and they just kind of locked it down even more. Whatever. So yeah, so guys, once I can break into the hardware industry, there's going to be a lot of amazing things, and power user, it's going to become the golden age for power users. So no more macro keys of the past and sniper buttons, of the past, and we don't need. It's a whole nother video topic. So anyway, I'm sure this video's gone on long enough, half an hour, whatever. I'm just going to post it. 8 gigs is obsolete. 12 gigs is entry level and barely entry level at that. 16 gigs is lower mid-range, is not even mid-range. 20 gigs is what I would consider mid-range, true mid-range at this point. 24 gigs would be high-end, and 32 gigs would probably be. I don't know what games use the extreme amounts of VRAM, because again, I haven't used that many games, but yeah, 16 gigs is no longer true mid-range anymore. So anyway, thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.